organized by the Big Data in Brazil and Nick.br. This is our third webinar in the series about sampling and inference of prices for virtual markets. We are going to talk about that soon, but this is the third seminar in this series. We've already had two others, one on March 15 about weighting database for public schools, and I was the speaker. Last month, on the 19th, there was another webinar about correction of bias for those infected by COVID-19 in Brazil, presented by João Gabriel Malaguti, who is taking his PhD. And today we have the third and last seminar of this series, presented by Luciane Maria Torquato Cerqueira Batista, introducing her this afternoon. But those three seminars were recorded and they are going to be made available to you so that you can watch them later. Thank you very much for being here with us. I hope you enjoy our presentation, and I'm sure it's going to be a very interesting discussion. The third webinar about sampling and inference of prices for virtual market, it talks about data collection through the web, especially to develop these price index through web scraping algorithms. Despite continuous advances in technological and computational uh, skills, it's still very difficult to develop reliable tools so that we can maintain really good quality. The methodology include determination of the population of virtual stores and also the combination of probabilistic sampling techniques to extrapolate price interference in this domain. To simulate it, the study applied techniques to analyze prices in the virtual market. And as I've told you, the presentation is going to be delivered by Luciane Maria Torquato Cerqueira Batista. She's taking her PhD in the Federal University of Pernambuco. She's studying big data as a source for price definition. She has her master in the University of Santa Cruz, and she had her training in economics through the same university. She's also a research assistant of the CAST and a civil servant. She works in data management in the University of Santa Cruz. I guess we can start now. So I'd like to hand it over to Luciene. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. You
Obrigada,
have the floor.
Tiago. Vou compartilhar aqui minha tela.
Thank you, Tiago. Let me start by sharing my screen. Good. Now it's working. Wonderful.
Então, boa tarde a todos.
Good
Mais uma
afternoon,
vez,
everyone.
meu nome é Luciene Torquato,
I'm
como o Tiago
Luciane
falou.
Torquato, as
Estou
Tiago
cursando
introduced
Estatística
me.
na Universidade
I'm
Federal de
taking my
Pernambuco.
PhD in
Faço
statistics
parte
in the
da
Federal
equipe
University of
CAST, que
Pernambuco.
conta aí com
I'm
23
studying
pessoas em
for
operações de big data.
estimate
E
and
eu vou trazer
sampling
para
for
vocês um pouco da
prices for big
metodologia
data.
que venho
And I
usando
was
nesse período,
invited to
não só
introduce
para
to
falar
you the
sobre a minha área,
methodology I've been
mas também
using
para mostrar
and
como
telling
que
you about the
esse
experience of having
projeto
price
aplicativo
simulations to have inferences
minha pesquisa está
about
sendo
prices.
realizada com o apoio do professor Cristiano
I'm carrying
Ferraz,
out this
que é
study
professor da
supported
Universidade
by
de
Professor
Pernambuco,
Cristiano Ferraz
e
from
o
the
professor
same
Ferraz
university
atualmente é
and
professor da
Professor
Universidade
Raidan
Federal de
Ospina
Pernambuco.
Martinez from the Federal University of
Então,
Bahia.
o objetivo desse webinário é
The
demonstrar
purpose of this
que é
webinar is to
possível
show that
uma
it's
população
possible to define a
imediatamente verificável
population
que hoje vivemos
considering
num
data
cenário, né,
which are part of what we consider to
todo o
be
universo
big
de
data.
dados
It
produzidos
represents all the universe
por
of
dispositivos
data
eletrônicos, satélites, computadores,
through
aplicativos,
electronic
computadores,
devices,
servidores,
satellite
redes de
apps, and
armazenamento de
any other
data
services that
e
allow
inferência para gerar
data to
insights e
be
inferir
stored.
sobre
And to
variáveis desse
generate
universo,
insights and
precisamos lidar com
generate
grandes
inferences,
quantidades
we
de
have to deal with a
processos de dados
large
que podem ser
volume of data,
capturados no
different
universo de dados
structure,
e com velocidades
structured and
inacreditáveis ao
unstructured
longo do
data,
tempo.
and at
Então,
very
como milhares
fast
de pessoas
rate.
estão navegando nesse universo de
As we
dados
have
localizados na internet,
all
como
the
estudamos
navigation
nesses
through the
primeiros slides
web,
que temos,
which is
e o
data that
coleta quantitativa que
a
fazemos sobre
recipient
esses dados.
of data, we have
Então,
to make
mais de
inferences
200
about them.
pesquisas que visam
Even though there
simultaneamente
are a number
dados
of
que
studies
falam
dealing with
sobre
that,
uma
very
inferência
little is
sobre os dados
said
de preços de
about
web.
probabilistic
Muitas
sampling
pesquisas
of web
utilizam
prices.
inferências sobre esses dados
Many
como um
surveys
argumento
use data inference as something
é,
non-trivial. And just for the sake of convenience, they use websites that they've selected randomly just because it's difficult to have appropriate registration or to have the right extraction of data. And these are all subject to errors or to sampling bias, leading to biased estimate. Considering the characteristics of data access and consider the source of information, I think there are challenges not only from a methodology perspective, but also through a technology uh, perspective, because in big data, sampling depends on a very important role to be developed. We seem to have all data in our hands, but if they are not properly analyzed, they are of no avail. We can use, therefore, the technique of web scraping to collect data. This is a method that uses algorithm to capture, gather, and structure data, and this is something widely used and studied to be used as a source of data. To show you the sampling plan we've developed, first we are going to talk about virtual e-commerce. We are going to define about our target population, and then we will talk about the parameters that are going to be estimated. We are going to talk about the total price of the studied population, and then I'm going to talk about the sampling plan to make estimates about that. Finally, I'm going to present some problems and solutions that have been found during our simulation using web scraping. It's on mobile phones, so through internet. And there are some advantages when we infer about prices. One of them is that estimates can help us uh, define some price ranges concerning virtual sales. And another advantage is that estimates can provide price index, already existing price index, which are used in the physical stores to be extended into the virtual commerce as well. Concerning this last element, we've been seeing some research studies that want to replace the prices collected through physical stores through those collected from the web. But there is a point of discussion that the populations are different when they operate in the physical stores and the virtual stores. Even though there are some stores that operate in both channels, even under the right or the same legal entity, the differences are observed. And the prices are different, but the population at large is really different and therefore presents different behaviors. So we believe that data search should be done as a complement to what is collected from the physical stores.
How can we then set up this virtual business and how and by whom? We can find some denominations which will classify virtual e-transactions that is still being built up and can be set throughout different ways, such as e-commerce definition, where we are going to adopt as any product transactions and service transactions which are carried out online, and the definition for virtual stores, business people that will conduct their activities as so. The building up a file that will encompass virtual stores, which will allow the sampling, probable sampling, they can be done throughout different definitions, such as it's almost impossible to be a search, to do that without a search channel, such as the web environment. And with that, we realized that we are able to identify virtual places within the internet, which are commercial, sort of speaking, as those brick and mortar stores which have their address, they will just be included in the sales uh, people file throughout what we call as being virtual commercial environments. So this is a differentiation between the two sorts of stores. And now we are gonna name them as virtual markets, which are those stores that they operate their business into a virtual environment, such as Google and Google Shopping. Google, the search Google tool, is not a commercial environment. However, Google Shopping, it is. Bing as well. Bing is not a commercial environment for research. So any stores which operate within virtual commercial environments are the so-called virtual markets as we have defined the terminology now. What are then the internet platforms that are highlighted within virtual commercial environments? We have the price search platforms. Anytime we have to search for prices available throughout the web. And some examples are Google Shopping, Bing Shopping. There are some price comparison platforms which are applied by consumers to search for virtual markets and those markets that are offering cheaper prices, such as Bom de Faro and Buscapé, and marketplaces platforms such as Mercado Livre. There are some other places where we can see some sales such as Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and instant messages such as WhatsApp, Telegram, Viber, email. As they are not environments set for commercial ends, we are not able to characterize them as being a virtual commercial environment. So we have to make some reference to the physical market, people that sell without commercial environments. They are going to be understood as official statistic as virtual business. In our cases, it's required to have a register and a virtual commercial platform access. Virtual commerce, once we acknowledge a file of a product T, of a product P in relation to a time T. The virtual market populations of a time T will be represented by the population P. All links as well as their informations will be captured throughout web scraping algorithm, take into account that each platform result they are feasible to get into intersections. Search platforms, they give back price comparison platforms, marketplaces, and virtual markets, which apply their own sites. Comparison platforms, on the other hand, they show marketplaces results and virtual markets with their own headquarters. And marketplaces, on the other hand, they just give a return to virtual markets without their own sites. Virtual markets are those that may announce on a marketplace, but they are set into the internet differently. Throughout the search platforms, comparison, and marketplaces, we have some intersections within the search results. With that in mind, we will be able to define our population throughout that scenario. Here I have some notes which we are gonna use from now on. PT is the file of used products to infer over a price within the virtual markets. RT is the population of virtual platforms from 1 to RT. And VR is a set of virtual markets which are announced by the R platform to that I product. VIT is the junction of both files. To be able to have a market file which sell a certain product, we will need to unite outcomes given by platforms to be able to have that population of all markets that sell over the web. All markets that sell throughout the web, they have to and consider all products. It's within our population VT, the link of all VITs. And finally, YIJ, which is a unit of product price. And to better highlight that, this is an illustration of our population from web scraping, which will offer prices given by a certain platform, platform 1, prices given by platform 2, and prices given by platform 3. But if we consider that we have a product file of size 3 and a platform file size which is also 3, within a macro scenario, there are 5 virtual markets in the internet which will sell all those products, or at least one of those products, she refrains. We are able to set this table where we have a price of product 1 at market 1, which has been identified by platform 1 as well. But here we have the same market 1, which sells product 1, that will be announced over platform 2. And here the same price of product 1, market 1, but it's been announced on platform 3. We do have to bind and unite results to reach the desirable population. Market 2, for instance, does not sell product 1 because we haven't found that neither on platform 1, 2, or 3. With that, we are able to unite all the results reaching this populational table. Here we have a 3D design, and down here a 2D design, bidimensional. How to join and unite links? A parameter that will define 2 different variables. First, MIJT, which represents the number of platforms that will identify the virtual markets that will sell a product in time T. Therefore, MIGT, it is a constant between 1 and T. MJ here can just be 1, 2, or 3. Either the market is announced by 1 platform, 2 platforms, or 3 platforms. That works not to account 2 or 3 times the same price data while performing web scraping over the platforms. And we have the capital I and J and IJR. 1, once the price is related to 1 product, or product I, market J, and announced on platform R, and it will be equal to 0. Here it would be 0, and here it would be 1. So it's reasonable to consider the virtual markets universe where the value is fully covered by what is being conducted by the RT platforms. If we add up this reasoning to all products, all markets, and all platforms, we'll be able to reach the size of the VT population in mind. As a platform population is considered known within this survey and is less volatile than virtual platforms, we started the following definition. The variable, which is the total prices of a certain I product within an R platform. To reach this total price amount, we have to multiply, To add up, she corrects herself,
Então,
to adapt to all markets,
esses,
YIT,
esses coeficientes, né? Então, os
and
coeficientes
all
que
these
trazem
coefficients,
todos a
coefficients,
indicadora de que o produto e o
as
mercado
well as the indication
estão
that the
ali.
products and the markets are there.
Então, é possível escrever que o parâmetro do total populacional de preços
So the parameter of virtual markets
relacionado a um tempo t é
related
esse
to
valor.
a time
A gente
t
vai somar
is
ele
the
com o
following.
IRT
We are able
por
to allow that to all
IRT e para
platforms
todos os produtos.
and
Então,
to all
dessa forma,
products.
teremos
So
o
with
total de
this
populações
addition, we are going to have the
virtuais,
total of
populações
all
virtuais que a gente tem.
population of virtual markets which we have.
Então, posto isso, a gente tem um primeiro cenário para
Having said
definir e
that,
mostrar o
we
cenário
have
1.
set a first
No
setting.
primeiro, a gente está considerando que o web
Scenario
scraping
one,
é
we
capaz de
consider that the
reproduzir
web
um full
scraping
file
result
de mercados
is
virtuais,
able to reproduce
mercados
a
aí
full
de
file of
plataformas
virtual
virtuais,
markets of
e estabelecer web
ERRT,
scraping em todas as plataformas em tempo
RER
t.
platforms
Então,
in
se eu
time
tenho
t,
uma população de
and
plataformas
it's
RT
possible to do
web
web
scraping
scraping throughout
que
all
em
platforms
cada uma
to
a gente
all
consiga fazer web
products.
scraping, a gente tem
If we are
acesso
able
a
to
todos
conduct
os
web
preços de
scraping in
todos
each
os
one of them, we have
produtos
access to all
existentes
prices,
e para todos os
Y
tipos de
and
mercados
J, to all
virtuais
products and to
possíveis.
all
Ou seja,
markets that
a gente
belong
tem
to
uma
VNT.
população-alvo
We have
diferente.
all this target
Então, isso
population,
possibilita uma
which
amostra,
will allow
o que a gente fala
a
de amostra
sample
direta de preços,
of
que
indirect
cada
price sample,
população
where
ela
each
possui
unit of the population
somente
will
uma
just
probabilidade
have
de selecionar o
the
produto
probability to select
no
product
cadastro fechado.
I
Então,
in the
se a gente
PT file.
tinha aquela população desenhada, né,
As we had a
digamos assim,
population designed over a first dimension
plataformas na segunda dimensão,
and
a gente
platforms over the second
para essas
dimension,
plataformas a
if we
gente
have a
precisa
population of platforms, the only
uma
thing
amostra
we need is to have a sample
do cadastro de produtos.
of
Então, isso
products file
vai fazer com que nossa amostra só dependa disso.
allowing our sample just to rely on the product sample.
Aqui a gente tem um estimador do cenário 1.
Here we have
No
some
cenário 1, a gente
estimates
vai
for scenario one,
dividir essa
where
variável
we are going to divide those variables to the probability to select product I
no web scraping, né?
in the
Então,
web
aqui é
scraping.
indicadora de que o
And
produto
here
I está na
indicator that
amostra.
product I is
Esse
on the sample.
cinza,
We may have that
aquilo
capital
que indica que o mercado vende aquele produto.
IJR showing that the
Associado àquela
market
plataforma,
shows
mas
and
isso aí
add
significa
that
que
product in the
aquele produto
platform.
está
But delta I
na,
shows
na,
that that
na nossa
product
amostra.
is
Então,
within our
a gente
product
tem essa
sampling.
indicadora, além da indicadora
So in addition
Y,
to the
e
indicator,
temos
we
como
have to have the capital Y, the small y, and each
a
variable
probabilidade de
yj,
selecionar o
which is the
produto
price, and
na,
probability to
no web
select
scraping.
product I in the product, in the
Então,
file of
aqui, a
products.
prova de que esse estimador não viesado, né? Então,
So there is no
consegue
bias
chegar
in
ao
this
parâmetro que
estimate,
diz a
which
esperança
allows us to reach parameters.
do estimador é igual ao parâmetro que a gente
We
tem tratado
expect to get the same
precisão.
estimation to the parameter in
E
mind.
aqui eu coloquei o parâmetro, o estimador, quando o produto foi
Estimates
selecionado
once
a
the
partir de uma
product is
amostra
selected
aleatória simples, né? Quando
by
PI
a simple
é
random
igual
sample
a
when
P0,
pi is equal
sobre
to
P0T, ou
pt
seja, P é
over
igual ao
capital
tamanho do
PT.
cadastro
P is
de
equal to the
amostra
size
que a gente
of the
selecionou, né?
sample
E PCT
selected,
é o tamanho do
and
cadastro de produtos que a gente
capital P
colocou
is
variância a
the
título
size of
de
the
informação.
sample that we have.
Aqui é o estimador da variância que a gente tem.
Here we have the variance estimator.
E aqui temos um cenário 2. Esse cenário
And here
2
we have a
é
different
quando
scenario,
toda
scenario
a
number two,
população, a gente
where we do
pode
not
fazer web
include the whole population. I mean, where web scraping cannot be done throughout all platforms and all populations or within those platforms. So to have a product sample, we have to have a sample of platform files, platform registers. We have the platforms, but web scraping cannot be conducted at all platforms. So ideally, we can have a bidimensional sample, which is the crossover of a product sample to the platform samples. After crossing that over, we will not just use Y and J, which is the price itself, but we are going to use this other formula here, which is the price divided by coefficient of multiplicity multiplied by the indicator. We are able to have an estimate that does not just relate to probability P to each product, but the probability of selecting a product and selecting a platform. And then we are able to render those probabilities to each one of the prices. With that second scenario in mind, we decided to perform an initial simulation where they use cell phone prices. As we didn't have a file of cell phones that are today sold, we got all products that were being released at that time and render PI as being equal to 1. And just for simulation purpose, we had considered just those cell phone products being described by line, model, storage, run memory, technology, and chips. And as to the platforms, we decided to use Bing Shopping, Google Shopping, and Mercado Livre. Web scraping will work over those 3 platforms, capturing prices of each one of their products. And we are going to build up a database telling us the platform where that product is being described, the product, the price, and the name of the market. Here we see an illustration. How does web scraping take place in fact? I used as an example Samsung Galaxy smartphone. Web scraping, go to Google. They simulate a search over Google. Similarly, does the same at Bing. It captures the prices of Bing. And then at Mercado Livre, they do exactly the same. We have a price for Magazine Luiza to that same very product, 2,599 and 10 cents. And here we have exactly the same information, Magazine Luiza, and the same price. But once we are searching for the information, we capture it and we place it on a database, we may bump into a challenge to believe that this product or this link is different from the other one, because we have a product, different products description. And when relating it, we have to have an algorithm which will identify products like that, to identify if this link is the same as this other one. And also, we have intersection. We have to be careful to the intersection between one platform and another, where we have the same information, and we have to know if the Bing information is the same information that we have at Google Shopping.
Esse discernimento de saber a interseção entre
And to be able to differentiate the intersection between one platform and another, and to highlight if there are duplicity within the same platform, we see that as one of our main challenges yet to be solved. And for that, one of the possible solutions that we have then adopted was not using information from here, from markets, I mean, but rather to use a link information. Instead of the web scraping capturing the name Magazine Luiza, they will capture the link where this ad is going through. If we capture the link where this ad is taken, we'll be able to know if we are talking about the same product sold by that same market or not. Similarly, if we capture it, we are able to make a link within the same platform and within two different platforms. However, once one link is captured at Bing, it comes with the Bing codes to inform where that person is coming from, what is the source of that link. And the same applies to Google Shopping. They want to know where that person is connecting from, what is the connection source. So now we are cleaning those links to have that raw, and then we'll be able to relate this link to this other one to know if it's an intersection or if it's not. Magazine Luiza store is stated as that name, but this other vendor can be somebody else. This can be one and that can be another one, as that is a marketplace, someone who sells to other stores as well. Here is a simulation of Mercado Livre. And here is a chart just to show that this amount is the data quantity, the total data quantity. I did after doing web scraping over all the platforms, this is the amount of data gathered. Once I filtered just the products that I want, we know that anytime we search for a product over a platform, being at Google or Bing, they give us some trash. And what do I mean by trash? Products related to the one I'm searching for, but not exactly the one I'm looking for. So a filter is needed to remove duplicity within that same platform or page. The same ad can be in the same survey, and web scraping will capture that same information. We have to remove the duplicity, and by removing the duplicity, the amount of data goes down tremendously. And to our surprise, data without intersections, they were not so high as we would expect. There are some intersections which should be considered, but we would expect something greater than that in number of intersections. As this is an initial simulation and based on capturing the name of the markets and not the name of the link, there might be a bias in the number of intersections. But we are moving ahead to be able to know if that is a small intersection or if that is somewhat related to our computational methodology or any web scraping code that might get some sort of failure. Just for your visualization here, we have the number of intersections, which is quite low. We have captured a total of 3,366 in January. And then once duplicated or removed, we have 579. Oh my God, too much trash. The volume of data that really matters, that is really useful, is not so high. You can see what a decrease from 3,000 to 500 if we are able to filter correctly. Our data will be able to get less data than we would expect, thank God. And then we have 294 intersections with intersection 294, without 291. Just 3 intersections were analyzed from that captured data. Here, the quantity of prices per products, which we have filtered. We believe that Mercado Livre gave us more data. And why? As we have simulated for products released in 2023.1, Mercado Livre is a platform which is still selling products which are not yet available in the market. But Google and Bing Shop, they tend to give us some shop results, which currently they sell products that are available into the markets, where we are able to filter data from Mercado Livre, as they are still using those products differently from markets with their own headquarters that ends up decreasing the volume of sales of those products. Some final considerations. To compare price estimates and in different times, it's necessary to capture information properly, information from virtual markets, from products in different periods of time. We will then need to capture any possible information of products and of markets to be compared to other seasons, to other periods of times. So we have to know which product has been captured on a first time and which products were captured on a second time. And if we're dealing about the same products, so price comparison should be done within prices of a same product within different times. And we have to identify if the capture price in one platform is the same one captured throughout a different platform, if they are talking about the same product and markets, to avoid the double information, duplicated information. Virtual markets, usually they do not allow enough information about the products, and this is one of the challenges of web scraping, where we are just able to capture the ad description only, and sometimes the description of that product within Google is different from the description of the product over Bing, for instance. Name of the markets, they can be introduced differently by different platforms. That's why we decided to capture the link and not the market name, to avoid and mitigate problems like that. And the fact that there is a mix-up of data between platforms of virtual commercial environments. And what do I mean by this mix-up? The entanglement of the system showed earlier. You may capture an information via different platforms. So our suggestion is to capture price information in each one of the platforms throughout the link. And then we'll be able to identify if a price identified in a platform refers to the same one captured over another platform. And the medley thing can be solved throughout a sampling and the identification of the product with all their characteristics, which is one of the main challenges. And that has been identified by words identification based on the product description. Although this is not the most efficient methodology, we are still trying to find a way to consider how to capture all that information and to get the whole product description and then to compare them at different times. That's it from my side. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you, Luciane. Well, this is a search which requires too much hard work as it involves several steps and challenges. So I just want to congratulate, and we are waiting for the final results of your thesis so we can benefit the most from your information. Now the session is open for questions, comments. Just raise your hands and then the floor will be given to you. But if you don't want to ask orally, you may submit your questions via the via the chat, the Zoom chat, I mean.
Bom, ninguém se habilitou aí. Deixa eu aproveitar o tempo.
Well, as there are no questions from the audience yet, I would like to ask you a question about the link. You said you had captured a link, and then you introduce a second step to verify. So is it double verification link? Exactly. The first simulation, which I have presented,
Tem alguém com a coisa aberta? Pronto. Fechou.
this first simulation we did using the name of the market that is shown throughout the search, and the second simulation, which is still being developed, we are capturing that from the name of the person, where we are able to relate that through a raw link. With that, we are able to remove any sort of bias. Then we may classify two ads as being different, which in fact they belong to the same link, or the way around. We can say that is the same ad, but in fact it's not, because it's a different link. It could be Magazine Luiza, but from a different vendor, which is selling that product for a different prices. With that, we are able to estimate the number of virtual markets that we have nowadays. Once we decided to do that via the link, that was the idea we had in mind, to estimate the real amount, the one that is as close as possible to the reality, those markets that sell in virtual environments. Well, that is a different product. You are not just estimating price, but you are also building up a vendor register, right? Yes, we don't have a statistic inference without a register or a file. The main problem is to define the register and to define the population. And that will lead to a number of challenges, not only statistical challenges, but also computational information technology challenges, as it involves web scraping. Are there any other questions, Tiago? If not, I have a second part of my question. Go ahead, Tiago. Just answering to Hugo Hernandez. This webinar is being recorded and it will be available in the original language, which is Portuguese, and the two other languages which are being translated right now into Spanish and into English, hub.ibga This is the link. Well, she's going to write down the website information for you to further be able to listen to the recording in 3 languages, as she said. I have a question, but before, let me ask if there is anyone from the audience.
No chat se pode disponibilizar essa
Well,
apresentação.
Hugo would like to know if
Como
this
ainda não
presentation could be available. Well, as I have not yet presented my thesis, that cannot be made available to you yet, but within 1 or 2 months, I can make these slides or this presentation available. And I hope even to improve it, you know, after my work is concluded, this presentation will be updated, and then we can make that available to you participants. Thank you. Andrea has written down the link over the chat. We have a question from Abel Soto, who'd like to know what were the tools applied for
foi através do web scraping, algoritmos de
sales data throughout web scraping algorithms and the Bureau
usei Selenium.
Consuming. I think that's what she said. I did not use Selenium.
Quando eu publicar minha tese também vai vir
Once my thesis is published, that will come with a code, as web scraping can be done from different ways. That is simply a code which we develop. And through some packages, we are able to capture that automatically. Prices can be captured automatically. So it's a computational programming work which I myself developed. Just to reinforce Python package. We have 2 other tools for web scraping which are very powerful. And to reinforce what we have, lots of experience with web scraping, that's very specific to each type of demand that we have. I think it's very interesting to have access for replicating codes, to understand the process, to understand the problems and challenges. To think about new sources to solve different problems and challenges. Anybody else? Well, as I am the moderator, I will ask another question. We had some experiences at nic.br via cetic.br of web scraping with companies and e-commerce data. We have a indicator of companies' ICTs, sales or purchase done by the web. This is one of our surveys that we had conducted, ICT business, from a data production perspective, and how is that directly linked to the business and to the client. But we know that those dynamics, they can be moved, they can be inter-exchanged, and they may do that in their own website. That's why we have to define a register. I had to deal with people that are outside those environments. Otherwise, we are always getting into a limbo. As internet sales, they come from different places, being WhatsApp, Telegram, Instagram. And to infer over that, we have to limit a populational register file. We have to restrain the population. Who is who? Who is the formal virtual market that we have nowadays in the physical market? And what is the informal market, or who is part from the informal market? And to encompass all of that, we have to consider two things. And in the future, we can improve that population. Now, that leads me to another aspect, which is specific to marketplaces. Mercado Livre, is very clear that Mercado Livre is a marketplace which offer the same products where they identify users or a fantasy name. And that option is also available somewhere else. Casas Bahia, Americanas, they also offer that. We will no longer have association by a link or even by user's name, as that may vary from one platform to another, which will represent an additional challenge. How can we then solve a problem like that? Have you been through that? Let's see if I got your comment. Your question is, how can we identify virtual stores such as Americanas, Magazine Luiza, and so on?
Foi justamente por isso que a informação que vem daquela plataforma de busca do
Well,
mercado não deu
we have
certo.
the search platform with searching for the name of the market that didn't work fine.
Eu sei que vocês também estão trabalhando com
I count on your help. I know that you are doing your best.
Usar somente o link cru daquilo ali. O que é
Just to
cru?
use a raw link. And
O
what's
link
that
que
exactly?
vai vir no Bing.
It's a link that will come
Por
at
exemplo,
Bing.
a gente tem
For instance, we
mercado
have a
anunciando
market
na Magazine Luiza.
which is announcing at Magazine Luiza, let's
O
say
link
so.
dele, o link daquele
That is
mercado
their link.
para Magazine
The link
Luiza
of
vai
that market is
para a
theirs.
página dele.
And that link will go to their page.
Se eu conseguir saber
If I manage to know that if that raw link without the rubbish or the trash that comes from Bing or Google, if we are able to have them, we will be able to identify that is within the free market or the Mercado Livre, I mean.
Dentro daquele marketplace. E concomitantemente a isso, por isso que a gente decidiu
That's why we have decided to include the marketplaces
nesse cadastro de plataforma.
within that registration of platforms, the file of platforms where we're going to register or capture that information throughout the price platforms and within the site. That's a way to embrace and not to lose those sellers that are selling within the marketplace. Many times we are not able to capture that at Google, Bing, all the virtual stores. That's why they have to be present within a file of platforms. I don't know if I answered your question.
Não, claro, claro. E ainda tem o fato de que hoje as plataformas de comparações de preços.
Today, the price comparison platforms, they are, performing the role of marketplaces. Buscador, they play the role of a price comparison, but at the same time, they are a marketplace. That's why at the time we're defining a file, we are not defining a file for marketplace or another for comparison platform and a third one for search. No, we are trying to unify as if they were just platforms, not to stratify it and not to bump into the same very problem. But still we have some obstacles to go over or to be solved. I know, too much hard work. You are doing a great job. Now I will open once again to our participants. If there are no other questions, I will hand over to Andrea.
Acho que não tem. Obrigada, Tiago. Obrigada, Luciene.
Thank you, Tiago. Thank you, Luciene. Amazing talk, very promising survey, great thesis. You are working over it.
Para a construção de cadastro, ainda que incompleto, mas é o melhor que a gente consegue fazer.
Well, that's the best what we can do. Congratulations. As Tiago said in the beginning, today is the last seminar of this 3 series of webinars of new development for the application of alternative data. That's a partnership with the NIC. Actually, NIC.br was responsible to allow all the organization. NIC.br is part of the regional hub, but this series has been organized by NIC.br. They do a great job. They do that beautifully. The 3 presentations were great. The first one was by Tiago, who's here with us today. The second, João Malaguti, and now Luciene, to close this wonderful series of amazing talks. You are all invited to search for the Hub web page to be able to listen to the prior ones, and today's talk will be available within a few days. And our next Hub webinar will be in June 18th at 11 a.m. Rio de Janeiro time. Trevor Morrow, who works for the World Bank, who will talk about something else which is very, very interesting and very useful, which is mobile telephone for public policies. I'm sure that you are all very interested in participating. You are going to get the invitation by email, because you always get an invitation for the next ones. So because you are asked in the survey form if you'd like to get information about our next webinars, which will be on June 18th at 11 a.m. Thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all a lovely weekend. Today is Friday. So, Luciane, I cannot thank you enough. Tiago, Marcelo, Pita, thank you so much. Of course, to Nick.br for our wonderful partnership. And let's keep going. Oh, yes, let me thank also the Hub partnership, and also thank Luciane for her presentation. I hope that was fruitful, that you had enjoyed our 3 webinars, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.